Welcome to my series based on Zentangle's Bijou Be Well, done in May 2025. Each day, Zentangle put out a video featuring one pattern, and the design was meant to be drawn in a short amount of time, so you could just take a little time for yourself and kind of get yourself centered. I encourage you to go visit their YouTube channel. I'll have the link down in the comments, and you could see how they did their designs. This series is meant to walk you through how to draw each design, and then also to give you some alternative ideas for embellishments and ways to kind of zhuzh up that pattern. This video covers the pattern Drupe. For all cards in this series, I used the same tools, so you will see in every single video in this series a blue Micron 05 pen, a General's Indigo blue chalk pastel pencil, an 8B graphite pencil, two Tortillons, so one for blue, one for black, and white tiles. And of course, that's my trusty little pencil sharpener there as well. If you followed along with the Zentangle series, you will notice that they also include a white pencil and a Tortillon for that. I chose to not use those for my series because I'm using a white tile, and I find that the white chalk pastel pencil really doesn't add very much to the design. Take a moment to gather your tools, get yourself centered, make sure you're sitting comfortably in your chair. When you're ready, let's begin. We start with a seed-shaped string, so no border this time. We're just going corner to corner and drawing a seed shape. And then we can put down our pencils, pick up our pen, and we're going to start by drawing a slight arc from one side of the seed to the other. And then starting on the other side, I'm going to do exactly the same thing. So I've created an X in the middle of my seed shape. Then I'm going to draw a slightly curved line from one tip of the seed to the other side. And then I'm going to turn my card and I'm going to go right across the middle of that seed. And you could either do what I'm doing here and kind of divide that space up, or if you feel like it's even and you just want to draw one continuous line, you can do that. And then the next step is we're going to aura the inside of each of these little sections that we've created. So an aura is just drawing a parallel line. And I'm going to work my way around my seed, and each space gets an aura. And I'm just working to keep my aura fairly even, and I'm also keeping it fairly skinny, so things are going to happen inside the space that we are creating. So I don't want to make that aura line too fat. I want to make sure I have plenty of room to do the next few steps. Now that you've created your sections, come a little ways away from the middle and draw a little arc that connects the two sets of lines, and then aura that. Then go to the next section and do the same thing. And I'm trying to get them to line up. They might not be perfect. And with those lines going across the seed shape, if they don't line up exactly, it doesn't matter that much. But I want them all to be sort of at the same level. So you'll see here that one kind of gets stuffed into the little space. And that's just how you drew your curves and how your spaces kind of land. You're going to find that you're going to have a few spaces that might have bigger arcs, and you'll have some spaces with smaller arcs. After I get this first round done, I'm going to come out a little ways and do this again. So I'm leaving a bit of a gap between each set of aura lines because we're going to do something between these lines. As you work your way around, when you get to your pencil string line, just stop, pick up your pencil, and then keep going. If something doesn't line up like I did there, it's not going to really matter at the end of this whole process, because once we do all of the embellishment work, some of those things that don't line up exactly will kind of just blend in. So don't worry too much if your arcs aren't perfectly lined up. Continue working your way around and then repeat the process again. So your goal here is to fill up all of the spaces with these little arcs. And so you're just going to keep working your way outward. And you'll get to a point that some of the sections that are in the middle won't get as many arcs as the ones out on the end. There are a lot of ways to embellish this pattern, and we're going to explore one of my favorite ways. Starting with the middle sections, I'm coming a little ways away from the highest point of the arc in each section, and I'm putting a dot at that point and then drawing a line connecting the dot to the V. And if the section's really teeny tiny, it just gets a teeny tiny little line. But I am going to put something in each section. Once I get done with this middle section, I am going to go to the next level out. At the very middle, I draw a line that comes close to touching the top of the arc. And then I surround it on both sides with slightly shorter lines. And I will go back and add a dot to those longer lines. As I was recording this, I was trying to decide how I wanted to do that. And I decided that that longer line needed a dot. So you can start by just doing what we did in the middle with putting the dot there. Or you can add it after the fact like I'm doing right now. And everything is just going to be proportional to the space that I'm drawing it in. So I'm not trying to make them exactly the same from space to space. If you have room, you might even want to put a taper to the lines. So as you move away from that middle line with the dot, you make them smaller and smaller. That is entirely up to you. And it's going to depend on how much space you have to work with in each of your sections. As before, when I run into my pencil string line, I'm going to stop. So that might mean that you just have some lines and you won't have that longer line with the dot. It just will, again, depend on how the sections sit within the string line. Once you're done with your embellishments, it's time to put down your pen and either pick up your chalk pastel pencil or your graphite pencil. Either will work. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to make it look like each of these little sections are bowing out and tucking underneath the straight lines. I'm focusing my color only in the sections that have the embellishments. So the skinny arc lines that we did before we started embellishment, I'm going to ignore for now. They'll get a little bit of treatment in a bit. Before I do anything else, I'm going to blend out what I have put on the card. So even if you're using graphite, I would do this. In each section, I am pulling the blue towards the middle, but I'm trying to leave a white highlight in the middle. So I'm only going to go so far, and you can see as I get closer to the middle, I'm using my Tortillon to feather the color. So I end up with a gradient that is darker at the straight line and moving to a white towards the middle. Some of the smaller spaces, you might end up with a very light blue because you just don't have a lot of space to work with. That's okay. As you move out to your wider spaces, that's where you could really kind of focus on that highlight. Once you're done blending, grab your graphite pencil and do this even if you used graphite in this first step. I am going to run a line of graphite down the inside of each V. I'm going over the colored sections and the white arcs. And so this is going to emphasize those sections tucking underneath that initial straight line that we created. Keep the graphite close to those straight lines so that when we blend this out, you'll have a really deep shadow that doesn't stray too far into the colored areas. When I blend this out, I'm keeping the line very, very close to the straight line. I'm just using this to fuzz things out and even out the pencil line so it's not streaky, but I'm not pulling that at all into the section beyond what just naturally happens as I'm blending. My final step while I have my tortillon is to run it over the initial string line and clean that up. I'm not adding any more graphite to this card. I'm just using what's there. And this will create a little bit more of a border and then also even out any little streaks or anything that might have occurred while we were tangling. Take a moment and admire what you accomplished today. And when you're ready, grab your pen and add your chop to your design. And there you have it, Drupe.